to Soul Naked, your podcast all about embodied healing and sacred sensuality. I am Tanya Hirsch, and this podcast is intended to guide you home to your truth and feminine power. Each episode is designed to inspire you to create a pleasure-filled life that is in alignment with your soul. Let's drop the mask and dive right in.
Our infinity, our divinity.
Welcome back, my loves, to the Soul Naked podcast. So I've decided I will do another month of weekly episodes, and after that I might transition into bi-weekly episodes. So, oh my God, Tulum life is a lot. Every day feels like a year and so much is happening, and I'm just so deeply grateful for the time that I'm experiencing here and all the magic that is happening and unfolding. And on Monday, I was joining a Bachuma ceremony, also called San Pedro. You might have listened to my last San Pedro experience. I recorded a whole episode about it. It's called My San Pedro Experience, A.K.A. My 3-hour orgasm. So this last experience was very orgasmic, very multidimensional. And this experience was a little bit different in some ways. And today I will share some parts of this experience because some parts are not for everyone's ears and some parts are still integrating. So I will just share the part that I feel called to share because I feel it's speaking to so many of us. And the topic of today's podcast is not only my experience, but also how to heal ancestral trauma and how to heal your inner masculine, or better said, how to heal your inner masculine through ancestral healing. Because there's so many ways to heal our masculine, but one part that some of us forget to look at is our relationship with our ancestors, our father, our grandfather, our great-grandfather. There's so many ways how we could have imprinted a false truth about the masculine without even knowing it. And yeah, so I'm sitting in Tulum on my rooftop, and if it's a little bit loud in the background, it's because Tulum life is just a lot. There's a lot of construction, there's a lot of just noise, and I'm sitting here with the palm trees around, the sun is shining on my face. There's even a little rainbow. If you watch this on YouTube, you see this little rainbow shape on my face. And I can't wait to share this experience with you. And my intention is really for you to dive deeper into your own lineage and to understand yourself a little bit better through the way you grew up, through your conditioning around the masculine. Because I spent 15 years almost of my healing journey diving into healing my feminine energy, which were my core wounds, were all related to the lineage of my mother. And also the feminine lineage of my father, like all the ancestors of my feminine line. First, I healed my own trauma, still healing. I think it never stops. And then I dove into the things I took on from my mother and my core wounds and all the things related to that. And since a few years, I'm also diving into healing my masculine. And it's an ongoing journey. I'm not an expert yet. I'm still doing my own healing work around that. And my Bachuma ceremony was just a huge milestone around that. And I'm going to share a little bit about my personal story. And also, I hope my story inspires you to see your own entanglements that you carry without even realizing it. Because this conditioning runs so deep in our DNA and our body that even if we understand things, the body still carries these traumas. So we have to go back for you to understand my Bachuma ceremony and for you to understand my personal story. So I grew up with, until I was 1 year old, I grew up with my parents. And then when I was 1 year old, my grandparents came to pick my sister up with the caravan, and she didn't want to go. And with my 1 year old, I packed my teddy bear and my bucket, and I stepped into the caravan and made it very clear that I'm the one traveling with them from now on. And that took me on a whole adventure with them. We were traveling around the world every single weekend and all the holidays. Sometimes they took me out of kindergarten. And I spent a lot of time with the dad of my dad. So this is the real father of my dad, and then the new wife of him. So my grandmother that I was closest to in my whole family is not even blood related. And I always saw this moment as kind of a savior because there wasn't much space and love and time for me in my own family. So I thought they kind of rescued me and gave me all the love. And I didn't see the toxic entanglements in that family line until I moved to Morea and had distance from it. I already felt that there's something wrong because I kind of, and this is hard to say, but this is the truth for me, it kind of felt hard for me to spend time with them in the last few years. Every time I visited them, I watched myself looking at the clock and counting the minutes, and it also made me feel guilty because I didn't know how much time I've left with them, but I felt so judged and so unappreciated in their presence that it just made me feel really uncomfortable, and I just wanted to leave. And there was a lot of shame around that because I thought I should be grateful for what they gave me. And when I did a lot of family constellations and also this Vachuma ceremony, I understand now why my body reacted in that way, even if my mind was like, you should pretend, or you should enjoy this time because you don't know how much is left. And this is very vulnerable and open for me to share because, yeah, it's just very personal. So my granddad, my last name is Hirsch, which means deer in English. And the name of this family comes from his side. And my granddad grew up in Dresden, a little city, or actually not that little, a city in Germany. And depending where you grew up and where you had, how much you know about history, there has been a flight bomb attack in a war in Dresden. And my granddad experienced that. So when he was a little boy, he was sleeping, his mom woke him up and bombs were attacking his house. So he woke up from the bombs and they had to go into the basement to run away to save their lives, basically. He saw his neighbors buried until the head. He didn't know if they're going to survive. He lost his parents in the dust. The basements were all connected, so they could go through the houses underground so they don't get attacked by the bombs. But he lost his parents along the way. He didn't know if they're still alive. He just walked through the city. At one point, he walked out of the basement and walked through the city. He saw dust and bombs, people dying, people screaming everywhere. So this was a huge traumatic event. And for 3 days, he would just walk outside of town because he knew his uncle was living there on his own as a little boy. He slept at foreign people. And then he arrived there and thankfully met his parents again. And then for, I think, over a year, they would all live, the whole family would live at his uncle's place outside of town. And there was nothing. There was no electricity. There was no food. They had to live from stolen potatoes from the field that they grabbed after harvesting. So there was a lot of trauma happening in that time that never had the chance to be healed. And I knew these stories. My granddad told me the whole story the day before I left to Morea, and it was such a magical moment and such a touching moment because when he finally escaped from Dresden, he tried once and he got caught and he went to prison. And the second time he escaped with his wife, so my real grandma, and they made it to Bavaria. They hitchhiked. And then my granddad walked into the building of the government, and it is the exact same building in Munich that I spent my last few weeks as a school teacher in. So it's like a full cycle closing moment. And when he walked in, just asked the person that was working there if he could have a job, if he could get a job there. And the person was like, what are you doing here? Like, if everyone would just come here, where would we end? And then I think I got that from my granddad also, to just try and not think too much. And he got a job at Siemens, and this is how my whole family came to Munich, and then a little bit outside of Munich where I grew up. And this is where life got better for him. He had money, he had a job, he had a family. But because this trauma was never accessed, when he told me the story the day before I left to Morea, I could see that he sees these pictures right now in front of his eyes. For the first time in my life, I saw him with tears in his eyes. And I saw how much pain there still is that has never been able to be released, to be healed. So he carried that. He's 94 now, and he still carries that trauma. And I noticed that I was carrying things that weren't mine from him already before Monday, before my Vachuma ceremony. I knew that this anxiety that I was feeling when I did something wrong, or if something, I even thought I could have done something wrong. I always had this anxiety I could end up in prison, or like really, really over exaggerated anxiety in my body. And I didn't know why, because it's not even real, and my mind would understand it, but my body would react in such an intense way that I knew there was something deeper to that. And also with money, I always had the fear of losing it, of holding on. And I got the money mindset. I'm probably going to record a whole podcast episode just about money mindset work, because this is running the show for so many of us without us even knowing. So I always had money in my life, always. But I was so afraid of spending it. I would hoard the money. I never knew how much money I had. I just always had so much that even my parents would borrow money from me when I was a child, because I just was a master in not spending any money. And that was from my grandparents, because they injected into me to not spend any money, to hoard everything. And this was rooting from the trauma of not having food for a whole year. Of sometimes they didn't even have potatoes. Sometimes they just had to starve for days. And this was so imprinted, because it was never healed, that even when he had money and he had a good job, he was holding on to every single penny. And I took that conditioning over. And I always had this fear of losing it. I had the fear of, no matter how much it is, I have to hold on to it, because it could be gone in a minute. And this fear was subconscious. It didn't matter if I have 1,000 euros on my bank account or 10,000. And that's when I realized there's something about my conditioning and my programming, and not about the money on my bank account, because we truly just want to feel safe, and we want the feeling we have when we have the money. We don't want the numbers on the bank account. We think if we have 100,000 on the bank account, we would feel safe with money, but actually it's the feeling and our relationship to money that makes us feel safe. And I worked a lot with that, but I still realized there's something like blocking me, and something I'm carrying that isn't mine. But I didn't know even until Monday how deep it was. So this was a little bit background story. And of course, this impacted also the way my dad grew up. He switched kind of in the other extreme. But this is a story for another day. So on Monday, we went to the Vachuma ceremony. I didn't know much. I didn't even bring my crystals, and I didn't prepare the way I normally prepare for ceremonies. Normally, I do my own cleansing program that I wrote my book about, the yogis cleanse. And I clean my body, I sit in meditation a lot, I clean my space energetically. I don't spend a lot of time with people, to really be just with the medicine. But this was very spontaneous. So I just went with 2 other women and 2 medicine, 1 man and 1 woman. I sat in the ceremony in the jungle of Mexico, close to a cenote. And yeah, Vachuma is San Pedro. So it's a cactus that's possible to consume in 2 ways. Last time I drank it, so it was like a liquid, more greenish, and this time it was powder mixed with cacao and water. And this time the taste was really, really bad. So I drank a whole cup, because I already knew I need a lot to feel it. And again, please don't ask me where and how I did it, like with who, because I truly believe, and I say this every time when I share about my plant medicine journeys, it will find you when you're ready. So don't push it, don't look for it. It will come to you when you open your feet to it. So it came to me. I already felt like I knew I have to sit with the grandfather again. They call San Pedro the grandfather, and I was literally sitting with my grandfather. And we would drive there, and I saw the deer sign on the side of the road. which is funny because it's my last name from my grandfather. And this always happens to me. Last time in December, it was also a lot about healing the masculine when I was in Mexico, and I saw deers everywhere. Even in every single room I was sleeping was a deer on the wall, and even in Costa Rica, like deers everywhere. And it was always related to the topics I was working through. And this time I saw the deer, I shared the story, and then I was drinking the whole cup in the ceremony, and for hours I didn't feel anything. For hours I didn't feel anything. And then I decided to have another cup, and it was really hard to swallow it because the consistency, the taste is just, I'm sorry to say that, but it's disgusting. But I somehow made it land in my body. And the second cup hit like from 0 to 100. And my intention was to see the truth of the masculine and to heal my relationship with the masculine. And I'm deep into polarity work, and I'm sure by now, if you're listening to my podcast, you know we all have an inner masculine and an inner feminine. And my inner masculine needed some work to do. Still needs. Like my feminine is in a good state. I have a lot of healthy feminine traits, but my inner masculine was still not really healthy. And this showed up in many ways, like what I shared with the money, and also the man that you're attracting in your life is a good indicator of the relationship to your inner masculine. So I knew I was carrying things that weren't mine, and I knew there was something off, but I couldn't dive into this on my own. So I asked the medicine, I was like, show me the truth about the masculine. And then from 0 to 100, the medicine hit, and I just felt all the pain of my grandfather's trauma, all the pain of war, all the pain of his suffering, all the pain that he took on during this trauma of experiencing war so intensely as a little boy and never having the chance to release it. And I just felt his way of viewing life and how much of that was imprinted in my whole body. And even though I already knew from doing all the polarity work and understanding masculine and feminine energetics that the healthy masculine traits, like I understood them, but my body was still carrying a lot of the trauma that he experienced. So I could feel the unsafety, the utterly feeling unsafe in my body, and always thinking someone wants to attack me, and always being afraid I would end in prison, and always being afraid someone would judge me and I could do something wrong, and someone taking things away from me, and like being attacked. And if you listen to my last episode where I shared about the experience in Morea, where someone tried to break into my bungalow and one of my biggest fears got manifested, I think I manifested that with that subconscious fear. Like it was already bubbling up to the surface, how unsafe I felt. And I was crying, my nose was snotting, I was laying on the floor, surrendering to the experience, and I just told the medicine, show me the truth about the masculine. And medicine was like, I will, but first I need to show you what you're carrying that isn't the truth about the masculine. And it was this feeling of utterly feeling unsafe in the world, in my body, with people always being afraid that I could do something wrong, that I'm being attacked, that I'm being judged. How much I was carrying of his pain because he could never heal it, I took that on. And many of us do. As little kids, as empaths, if we are born into a dysfunctional family system and nobody's taking the responsibility, we sometimes take that on. And I could feel it in my shoulders. I could feel the tension in my shoulders that I was carrying for him, that was blocking me from receiving the healthy masculine. And it doesn't matter if it's money or an actual man in my life. I never felt safe to fully surrender and to trust the masculine. And I thought I did, but my body was speaking a different language. My body still didn't feel safe. So while I was feeling this pain and this trauma from his experiences that were not mine, my body began to move and to shake. And while I was crying and releasing it, it just came out of my right arm. It kept on moving through the right side of my body, and I just stripped it away. The energy came out of the right side of my body. I could feel this tension in my shoulders softening and just moving out of my right body. And for, I don't know, maybe an hour, I was just recalibrating. And one of the medicine women said, it's your nervous system recalibrating right now. And my whole body would just move and release. And was so intense. It really felt like I'm being in war right now. And I experienced the unsafety of being in war and being attacked. And even though I never experienced it, I carried this pain and this tension and this feeling of my granddad because he could never heal it. So I took that on, and in that moment, I gave it back to him. I released part of it through my body, the part that I was carrying, and the rest, I gave it all back to him, even though he might not be able to hold it. But I realized how much I'm, holding my life back by carrying that. And sometimes we feel responsible to it, because if nobody will take it, who will take it? And then we take it on and we carry this for so long. But I knew I had to give this up. And the only thing that kept me going in that moment, because it might not sound so intense, but it was really intense to feel this pain, to feel the trauma and to release it. And I was just like, show me the truth, show me the truth, show me the truth about the masculine. And it kept on showing what's not the truth, what still my body was carrying, like that the masculine is judgmental, that it doesn't want my best good, that all the things I experienced from my granddad, also the way he treated me, his very narcissistic traits, and no matter what I did in life, no matter how much I achieved, no matter how I thought I'm doing great, it was never enough for him, and it was never good enough. And he had a version of me, how my life is supposed to look like. And me being a school teacher was one of the last boxes I checked in his world of how I'm supposed to be in this world. That I had tattoos didn't check his box, and he was already judging that. That I quit my job as a teacher was the last box that was fitting into his box he had of me in his life. So when I decided to quit that and to choose this path of the priestess and following my soul, and my grandparents like still think I'm a yoga teacher, they don't know anything of what I'm doing. But because they didn't understand that and judged me for it and didn't support me and just outcasted me, I took that on about the masculine subconsciously, that I'm not good enough. And no matter what I do, it's never good enough. If I shared photos really proudly of a yoga retreat and what I created, he would just say, yeah, whatever, I wish you had something else on your mind than your stupid yoga. Like, he was really harsh with me. And that was also the way I was talking with myself sometimes. It wasn't really my voice, but I took that critic over. And so it showed up in so many ways. The way I showed up online, I came a long way already, but there was still this voice that was afraid of being judged, of being outcasted. Even in my friend groups, I realized how this was impacting me on such a deep level, that if I share something online, or even if I share something in a friend group, that there's always this little fear that I might be judged for it, that it might not be good enough, that I might be outcasted. So in so many areas of my life, this unhealthy relationship to my inner masculine that was imprinted and conditioned through my grandfather and also my dad. I never saw a healthy masculine growing up. I didn't know what it means. There was either a codependent dynamic of a demasculated masculine that could never stand up, or there was a narcissistic masculine that was judgmental and harsh, and no matter what I did, it was never good enough. So this was my world of the masculine. And I never saw a healthy masculine. Even the partners that I attracted were almost like a reproduction of the masculine figures in my family. And I never understood why. I was like, why is this happening? And then I understood it was a match to my inner masculine. And something massively shifted through that experience. So after I released all of that, we went to the fire, and I gave a lot back to the fire, and I made prayers, and I said, kept on saying, show me the truth about the masculine, show me the truth. And it just stripped away layer by layer of the false truth that I was carrying in my body about the masculine, about the false illusions that I thought a masculine would be. And of course, doesn't feel safe for me to open up fully, to trust, to surrender, to lean on, even though this was my biggest desire. It didn't feel safe for me to fully surrender to the masculine because I never experienced a healthy masculine in my life. So it was really painful to see the truth. And I think that's very important when we choose this path and we walk this path of truth, that if we see the truth, that we accept it and that we are willing to see the truth and to reprogram ourselves. And if that means that we have to see the truth of toxic dynamics in our family systems, it's not always easy because, of course, we love them and we spend so many years with them. And it doesn't mean you have to cut the relationship off, but sometimes it means to energetically disentangle so they don't have power over you, because you can't be in your power when you're so entangled in these toxic dynamics. And this was huge for me. So it kept on showing layer after layer. It's not the truth about the healthy masculine that I have to be the strong one, that I have to always hold and to always be the strong one, to never feel safe to surrender. And everything just kept on coming up, also from my dad, a lot of memories of where he didn't stand up, but this is not the truth about the masculine. All these things because of the experience they experienced. And again, that doesn't mean that they are bad people. If this relates to your family, it doesn't mean that your parents are bad people or your grandparents. They just also experienced trauma that kept them from the truth. So these layers stripped away, and I just kept on praying, please show me the truth about the masculine. And then everything that I already learned and understood and thought I embodied about the masculine, that he's grounded, that he's happy to support and to show up and present, and that he has good interests, and that I can fully surrender to a healthy masculine. All of that suddenly felt true because these layers were not covering the truth anymore. And I realized I never really was able to even physically lean onto a masculine. I never had a boyfriend or a father or any masculine figure where I really could soften and even physically, like, just lean onto the shoulder of a man, because I never experienced that and it didn't feel safe, because I was carrying these imprints subconsciously that it's not safe. So how could my body soften if it wouldn't feel safe? And I already had a beautiful experience with a man, nothing sexual, but where I could just be so held and lean onto the masculine. And it, for the first time, it really felt safe. Otherwise, I was leaning on men, of course, but it always felt like I'm still holding on. But this was like a softening in my body and an opening and a seeing how much I was not trusting the masculine. And I didn't know that. I thought I was trusting the masculine and my ex-partners, but a huge part of my nervous system didn't feel safe. And I also did a lot of tools that helped me to get to this place. I did a water massage in December in Mexico, where you get a nose clip, and a man was swirling me around the water. So you have to fully surrender your body. And this was when I already realized I did surrender, but my body was shaking the whole time. There was so much trauma being released. And he would swirl me around and push me underwater, and you just, with your eyes closed, you surrendered by being guided by the masculine and being led. It was such a powerful, beautiful experience that it is actually safe to do that. So there's a lot of ways how you can heal your masculine, how you can dive into the relationship with your inner masculine. And sometimes it takes years to even get there to see the truth. I've done a lot of work around the masculine, and I still didn't see that my body carried these false illusions, because it was so imprinted in my nervous system and in my body that our mind is a tricky thing sometimes. It can convince us that we are already there, so we don't really have to dive that deep. So you can even think you have a healthy relationship with your masculine, but if you look at the relationship with your dad, your granddad, with the man you attract in your life, same with the feminine line, you can very clearly see the mirror of the relationship with your inner masculine. So the ancestral healing of your lineage is a huge part about finding inner union within yourself, so you can be in your power and live the life and lead the mission you came here to experience in this lifetime. And we can live a lifetime without even looking at that. But the question is, do you want that? Do you want to live your life like that? Or do you desire to trust and to open and to fully surrender? And that's a huge part of my work, that we dive into the family system on an energetic level in the quantum field, but also embodied in your body, in your nervous system. So you can become a sacred union within yourself with your own divine masculine and your own divine feminine. And I'm very specialized in the feminine, the divine feminine work, but I'm also collecting the pieces of the inner masculine so they can merge into a divine union, so you can attract that on the outside too. And I'm taking you with me on the journey of calling my men in. And this was a huge part of it, to really, because I always felt the desire to fully surrender and to be held and to be led and to trust the masculine. But because of that imprint in my body and nervous system that wasn't even mine, I wasn't able to. So this was huge for me, and it's still showing up. I'm still integrating, and I'm still seeing how this is reflected on the outside. I already noticed, I mean, this has just been 5 days ago, but I'm already noticing a huge change in the way I am perceived, how could I say that, what kind of men are looking at me and attracted to me that I might have not even noticed in the past. Much more masculine men. Before, I was always like very feminine men would be attracted to me, or toxic masculine men, which was a reflection of my inner masculine and the way I grew up. And now I'm already realizing a different kind of man is being attracted to me. Also, the way I look at supporting myself, providing myself, being allowed to be provided. I even had a hard time being invited for food. I wanted that, and I was complaining if a man didn't pay on the first date. But I also still had this feeling of feeling guilty and needing to do something in return, because this is the way I grew up, and there was always not enough. So it was always like, oh my God, the money topic is a whole other episode that I might record soon. But I just realized normally, if I go into a restaurant, I would look at the prices and then decide what is the cheapest, what I can afford. Like I could not look at a menu without looking at the prices first. And now I'm like looking at the things first, what I really want, what my body is desiring, without looking at the prices, and ordering sometimes even 2 or 3 things. I would have never done that in the past. And it's like my inner masculine is providing for me. It's like, baby, you're safe. Baby, just order whatever you want. You deserve it. And there's always enough. And I feel much more safe around money and around showing up for me. I feel much more grounded. I feel much more structured. I even have the desire to structure my business different. Like it already shows up on the outside and the way I feel inside myself. But there's probably gonna come much more with that. And yeah, if you feel the desire to work with that, this is a huge part of my work, to do this in the quantum field, in my healing journeys, one-on-one. They go really, really deep. We bring harmony back into your family system, so you don't carry more than you're supposed to carry. You give back what isn't your package to carry. This can already change so much in the way you experience life. You have so much more energy and power if you don't carry all the responsibility and trauma and emotions for other people. And also, we work on embodiment. How can you recalibrate your nervous system and your body to really feel safe around the masculine and also the feminine? And yeah, what kind of emotions need to be felt in a safe space for you to truly come back to your essence? So this is a glimpse of the work we do in my one-on-one containers, and they have been going deeper and deeper and deeper every time. It blows my mind. Most of my one-on-one sessions are like a 10-year therapy container. These women, if you're open to it, these women are really, really releasing a lot of trauma and seeing things and shifting things. And that's why I decided, normally I only do 4 months containers, because some topics need longer journeys, especially if you're working on something big But I also realized one session can be so potent that it already changes your life. So I decided to offer 3 one-on-one sessions, 2 hours, just you and me in a safe, sacred container that can heal a lot that needs years in therapy, because we're not just talking about it, we're going into the body, we're going into your energetics, we're going into your quantum field and your subconscious, and we bring harmony back so you can really live in alignment and not from hustling and being entangled. And yeah, so 3 one-on-one sessions, 2 hours, and you get 1 week Voxer support. This is what I'm offering right now. And also I'm offering one month container, which means we meet bi-weekly, 2 sessions, and you have a month Voxer support. And these Voxer supports, it's almost like a healing session on its own. You can send me voicemails, we are in interaction, and you get like mini coachings Monday to Friday with whatever comes up, because these healing sessions go so deep that the integration sometimes brings up new topics. That's why it's so important for me to have a safe and sacred container where you can, really be with that and feel held and feel supported and not be alone in your mess and your chaos. So if this calls your name, send me a message. The one-on-one at a one-time healing session, so 2 hours plus 1 week Voxer support at 777 euros. And if you want the 1 month, it's 2,222. Send me a message if you feel the call for that. It would be an honor to guide you on this journey. And one session can really go deep. If you desire to do a longer mentorship with me over 4 months, I open 1 more spot, maybe for a longer period of time. Because I'm very picky who I let into my one-on-one space, because just even entering my space can already shift a lot. So only apply, please, if you're ready to really go deep and to shift and make changes and to look at the parts of yourself you've been suppressing and that are lingering in your subconscious. My work is not for the ones that just want to dip their toes in it. I'm here for the deep, deep work. So if you feel the call, send me a message. I would love to hear more about your process right now, what you desire, and to guide you on this journey. And without further ado, let's end this conversation here, and I'll see you next week. Much love from Tulum.